other than green light, we're ready to go. The only practice session of the weekend. Thank you ever so much, Ted. And there's a queue of cars forming to get onto the track. The first house and is Ollie Bevan and Esteban Ocon at the Haas team, followed by Yuki Tsunoda and Isaac Adger and his teammate Carlos Sainz now at the Williams, and Max Verstappen there. I can see in the queue there the two Alphas. Oh yeah, Gasly and Jack Doohan. You might make the only rookie of the 6 rookies on the grid to have raced here at Shanghai before. He came here in 2019, the Asia F3 Championship. He actually won the race that weekend as well. So Jack has experience here. The other rookies don't, including Gabriel Bortoletto, who was talking just before the press conference yesterday, saying he came straight from Melbourne to Shanghai on the Monday. It's his first time in China, let alone his first time in Shanghai, let alone his first time at the circuit as well. And it's not the easiest of circuits, Guru-chan, up to master straight away. Now, it's a tricky circuit. You've got a lot of corners where one connects into the other, like we're seeing here, turns 1, 2, 3, and 4. So getting the line right is going to be absolutely critical. You've got the median sector of the lap as well, turns 7, 8, 9, 10. You know, it's so important to make sure you've got the comfort and the confidence to get the line. They would have done it, you know, hundreds of laps in the simulator to get the lines right, to get the feeling right. It's always different, Crofty, when you see it in the flesh and you feel it underneath your bum as well. It is a bit different, and it'll take a couple of runs to get up to speed for sure. There's a new tyre box on this track already. It's been completely resurfaced at Verdi Collins. So what does that mean for the teams? Do they have any relevant data? Well, it's a bit of an unknown again. You know, last year they came here again a sprint weekend. They had no data the whole way back to 2019. So big unknowns. I think this year again, you have some data from last year in this back of car really, but they will a lot harder to be done on this new track surface. We've got new to higher compounds over this year, although they've got the same lettering. They're slightly different in terms of product weight improvements to those tires. So the learning of both together needs to come on. We've got quite hot track temperatures at this point. Yes, the tyre compounds are such that the C2, which is the hard tyre for this weekend, is a step closer, a different 2024 step closer to the C3, so a little bit softer than it used to be. There is the Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso is sporting a tribute helmet for this weekend. The man who set the fastest lap in the race of the Grand Prix in 2024 on his way out of the pits for the first time, and everyone on the medium compound tyre. Well, that's for these initial laps. You know, this weird unknown which took part of the Northern Grand Prix in 2004, of course, and you know, was in that fantastic race, 2006, Michael Schumacher's last ever victory, and now full story. But Aston Martin were originally the team that was the Jordan Grand Prix, founded by Eddie Jordan back in 1991. There are a lot of people working, and not just here at the track, but back at Silverstone, who were there in the early days. Old Joe, who worked under Eddie, who was a racer always at Haas, started out in the British F3, but he realized, I think, that racing himself was not going to be the career goal that he wanted, and so, well, would have been wasted as a teller at Allied Irish back point. Frankly, I'm glad he made his way into Formula One, because do you know what, F1 without Eddie Jordan, I'm not sure it would have been the same scores as Oscar's Alex Albon in Williams celebrating his 29th birthday this weekend on Sunday. Alex Albon, an early exploratory trip into the gravel. Yeah, I mean, Eddie was a good driver. He was his Irish karting champion, and he sent before, I think. And it was a cash in another club. Yeah, he specialist takes a lip, put it into his riding days. But I'm kind of trash in the way he pivoted, because, you know, the color that he brought to the fabric as a deep owner is brilliant. Albon there, the long right-hander, and then the rear of the car stepping out of the line, carrying too much speed, or just a bit spooked by the slow-moving Haas on the inside. Maybe slightly had to change his line because of the Haas there. This is Liam Lawson, similar part of the track, and I think it is just low grip, you know, just look at him seesawing at the wheel. It's no good. It is a brand new surface, as you said, and just the car stepped out on him. That's an unusual place. We don't often see that. That's such a late point, but it just shows how low the group is. Yeah, exactly. But also how much you just have to back off. The minute you start going offline there, it's a patient fall at the best of times, and yet it probably feels like an eternity. You have to wait to get back on the top again. But you have to be even more patient if you've slightly gone offline in turn 2. So, well, that was an end of that period. I held the same name, but the other low grip then. Because actually, there's no point. 35-1 for George Russell straight away on the first lap. That is, that's not far off what we were seeing in qualifying. Which, you know what, the last year's FP1 fastest time was a 1:36.3. Yeah, that was Lance Stroll, by the way, who picked up 6th place in Australia last time out of the same track that he's got his best results stat for the last 2 seasons. So is that a no with 6th place being the best for Lance Stroll in 2024? Look, 2025 we give him a lot of races to come to try and better that. That's a bit disconcerting. You don't want that. You would want to be getting into the pits very quickly so the mechanics can take a look at that. Yeah, one of the things that is going to have their coffee is the track, obviously, if had that corner being correctly, will improve a lot through the session. But that's quite windy out there. Would you not have the Mario France radar that we help here? 30 kph costs is what they're saying on there. So there will be someone that was quartered without a quite big effect as they turn in. We'd love me in headwinds going in and tell them what we obviously become a tailwind as that corner carries on. Yeah, so this is where we're taking Anthony. He's driving into the wind at the moment. And to be honest, this is the direction it was yesterday as well. I cycled the back with Carlos Sainz, and we were talking about the wind and how it's going to have an effect. He said, the headwind coming in does help you, and it sort of supports you to get into the apex of 2. But as you said, once you come around, then it's behind you. But then you sort of drop down into the bowl, you are shielded a bit at the apex of the left hand of 3. He's got flat spots on Chandler's tires, even off somewhere. He locks up already. And by the way, first time he's never raced in Shanghai in March. Average temperature of this time of the year, 18 degrees centigrade. It's only 23 degrees at the moment. It's a warm day on this Friday here in Shanghai. It is a beautiful day as well. Actually, one of the nicest days I could ever remember being in Shanghai. Yeah, it was really having my packet over because the weather was changing all week in the run up to this race. It was looking really cold at one stage, and then it has really ramped up. And we've got less time cover that we've had in previous years as well, which has been into this sunny conditions and hotter track temperatures, as well as that, chatting to Creighton this morning in the bus. This new track surface is quite dark tarmac, so that'll bring higher track temperatures than what the teams have, and it's predicted to get hotter as we had in unfold. We're expecting another 6-7 degrees by Sunday. Second week running, the temperature is going to change from one day to the next quite dramatically. We're following Charles Leclerc on the track. If you want to ride on board with Charles Leclerc, you can do so. We have all 20 drivers on the track at the moment. We've got all 20 on board cameras. Actual disposal along with the team radio as well. You leave your Sky Sports app, Sky Sports login to access this feature. And if you're watching on Sky Stream, Sky Q or Sky Glass now, then you can use the interactive button on your remote control. If you want to use the QR code, please do so. It's a lovely day to ride on board as Lewis Hamilton goes fastest. It's a lovely day to stand trackside as well. So let's head to Boston Brabble. Indeed, it is absolutely spectacular around here. Indeed, it is. Can you hear me, Crofty? I can hear you, Martin. And loud and clear. Oh, good. Good stuff. Good stuff. Turn 1. Yes, it's more of an approach zone than a corner, really. They turned out at 190 miles an hour down the pit straight and just carry on firing into the corner. The surface looks absolutely superb. It really does. You can tell it's brand new. So they decelerate all the way through turn 1 into turn 2, down to just 60 miles an hour from sort of 190 when they tip it. And then look at this McLaren and Oscar Piastri coming through there. Wow, does that thing stick to your mirror? And everything is really fighting on up. No wonder the times are massively quicker than we've seen before. Because you can just see how grippy, how smooth it is. As normally there's directly punch where the tunnel goes under the track. Haven't seen the cars sparking off that. As you point out, they turn into a headwind, which gives them more doubt. Things you'll never see an aircraft landing or a helicopter landing tailwind. That's why they use sometimes go over the center of London. Sometimes you come in from the west. If you butter that into a headwind, because you get much better aerodynamics, as I say, with a Formula 1 car, you get more downforce into a headwind. But it's surround sound, Formula 1 now, because it might just take a few steps. We can still see the end result of that ever snowing zone that is turns 1, 2, 3, and 4, as we'll just creep down the side of the fence and see them coming down the hill. We maybe see them squabbling at the start as well, wide on it. And it's a tyre torture. There's no doubt about it. As they come down the hill here, it's quite narrow. You have to see them inside, outside, trying to find some grip. Cascades down the hill, quite dramatically. And then they take off into the countryside. That's exactly what I'm doing. Thanks ever so much, Martin. Enjoy the track. Take a little picnic. Have fun with you as well. Oscar Piastri is just on 26 more thousandths of a second quicker than his teammate Lando Norris for the 133. This is Lewis Hamilton into the hairpin. And one of the two heavy braking zones on the track, as you can see, just using the back end a little bit as he made his way through that right hand. Yeah, just struggling to get any stability down the brakes. And it's the sort of thing which you can do with other tools. In the cockpit, brake migration being one of them. So when you first hit the brake pedal, when you hit the peak of the brake, there is the brake pressure. That's a brake balance. As you come off the brake, the migration between the front and the rear, that's adjusted. That's a separate switch. So a bit of tuning, but US on this first run, 3/10 to Charles Leclerc so far, but he's on a better lap probably. Yes, he's just under the fastest first sector. There's this purple breeze popping up all over the place on the timing screen. Purple being the best of that particular sector. Green being your best in that particular sector. The good line on board with me is Hamilton making use right now. So you're able to turn 11, which is re-entry, so that the second for the tight patience, long corners, and never treated him to 12 feet in the 13, and then you can face it and rest for about 1.2 kilometers down that back straight up the kip braking zone. And it should, I know it feels a bit nonsensical to be resting and relaxing at over 200 miles an hour, but this is one of the longest straights in Formula 1. And it must feel like the more time that you're spent resting and relaxing. You spend a lot of time thinking about the hairpin. To be honest, you think a lot about, do I want to make a tweet? Am I happy with where the balance is? You've had a big stop. You go to 11, and you get the cues from that in terms of where you want the car and the switches, as Hamilton does go to the top of the dice. How's the car to 33.2? It's okay. It's a bit nervous. If at high speed. A bit nervous in the high speed, because Fernando Norris is kind of leading to yesterday the press conference as well. There's still a bit unstable at times, this car, despite George Russell thinking he can win every race this season. Lando's saying, yeah, it's good, but it's still not perfect to drive. But there's some psychological gameplay on there, isn't there? You think with, Russell saying, we also Red Bull had the best car, but they also had Max, and so there's some things going, do you not think that Lando's as good at that? So there's some games going on there. I think Mercedes and Russell are playing the game, also under promise and over deliver. The good thing is, though, it doesn't matter what people say. The good thing about Formula 1, so the stopwatch never lies, and the results are in print for all of us to say to you. I want me one of those. I want a Fernando Alonso Fran strength picture. There are brilliant. Ted Travis, yet me was Fernando Alonso Favs proves. I'll send me Tricraft, the honest fans of Ireland. Okay, I don't have a monitor, so I can't exactly see what you're talking about. All I have is just the massive grandstand. But listen, earlier in the show, I promised to let everybody know about the teams who have been affected by the rule change or the rule clarification on flexing rear wing. So I sent messages to all the teams. The top 4 have come back, and so Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari and McLaren have said that they have not had to change their rear wings at all. They're the same ones that they ran in Australia, and the ones in Australia would have passed the new test, and these ones passed the new test. So the first one that can confirm that they have had to change their rear wings is the Alpine team. So I have a quote from Dave Greenwood. He says there was a technical directive that we need to comply with. There is a change in that for this weekend. We've complied on both occasions. We've had to do some work back at the factory to make sure we're in the correct place here. It says that's normal for a race change, and an allowance for reflection changes, and we check you're able to comply with that. So they have had a quick change for Alpine. It's the same wing, but had to beef it up. That's interesting, Ted, because if you look to the normal DRS speed trap result to Australia, Alpine, I think, were right at the top of them. Okay. Yep, well, that would certainly square with having a wing that allows itself to dump a bit of drag and spackle slightly. But yeah, so far, I've only got Alpine. I've asked to the rest of the teams and haven't had a response as yet. You might be speaking to the Haas team principal. I might do that later. You can ask him if you like. Yourself, I'm really about to this, and he's the team boss on the ball this weekend. Beers, I popped in the zoo earlier today, and honestly, consider enough the performance for Melbourne. They seem to have got an understanding, and we'll get him to explain in 14. He'll do a much better job than me. One thing I was just looking at is Lando Norris is on a very clicking app, but give me the bits. He did the first few sectors, 3 tenths off on George Russell's time, so that would have been to the 132s. Lewis Hamilton, what is he up to the final corner? Jimmy saw beams around that final corner is what Lewis Hamilton was up to. By the way, don't be surprised to see Lewis Hamilton right up there. He is the most successful driver in the history of the Shanghai circuit with 6 pole positions and 6 wins too. Is Lando Norris into the hairpin? You've seen the markings down at turn 1 already. Just people with the compression, the amount of G and the downforce pushing the cars into the ground. It's a good illustration of how it works. With that little coming 1.5 it was why London Norris came into the pit. So a lot of them struggling into that hairpin to get the car stopped and slowed down. And there wasn't Bernie. You've got 75 meters more at DRS on that straight this year as well. Yeah, no, we definitely making it a fact. The team has got more of the heads up than we do, so they should have been able to run that. If their simulator, for example, when they were doing it, they should be aware of that. A lot of them I know of. Do you other running at this point? How much grip they're expecting when they get down there? Is that a part of the track there's really not so much grip in that braking zone? And then I think when they get to the end of the grounds, as you can see it here, I think clearly where there's grounds down is just before the apex, and then at the apex it's a bit exposed. So you might get that gust of wind just as you come out of the apex. I'll treat that sentence to go very pedantic. Say the teams get a heads up with the DRS. How's been led to at least someone's telling someone. So there wasn't the Uber, big living on. So the DRS has been lengthened on the long straight now. The penalty and back straight, yeah. But the one on the south of the straight is still the same, hasn't it? Yeah, the bunny skiing has got a longer DRS. The what? The bunny ski. Do you not look at the map and think that it's a bunny on some skis? I do know. I think I did it. I didn't. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen, from the upside down pig, from the spider pig in Las Vegas, it's now a bunny on skis in Shanghai. I get it now, yeah, which is like necessarily what they were trying to create when they came up with the big 80 track. Tell engineering speak, by the way, though, she's by the way, going to start line to remember it. Become 17 years in the film of that. No, whatever. Thanks for that. See, I knew there was a reason why you were here, Bernie, and he just put pictures into our mind. No one else ever did. George Russell is on a flying lap, and at the moment, second fastest, behind Charles Leclerc and ahead of his former teammate Lewis Hamilton. But Kimi Antonelli, fourth fastest. Hamilton and Antonelli have just pitted. Russell lost about 3 tenths to the fastest middle sector. Yeah, he went wide at turn 9 and then dropped the wheel off the curbs, and that would have hurt his exit. Through turn 10 all the way up to 11. So I think Mercedes seem in decent shape here, don't they? The drivers showing a lot of confidence straight out the box. Jimmy Antonelli, you never been here before. He'd all night first done within 2/10 of Lawson's time. Very confident young man, Kimi Antonelli, and why shouldn't he be? Fourth police tradition in Australia. Survived all the carnage at the end as a teammate George Russell, I guess, half a second clear of Charles Leclerc. Kimi Antonelli started 16th, finished 4th in Australia, which is exactly what Lewis Hamilton did in Abu Dhabi. So the driver of that seat finished 2024, started 16th, finished 4th, and then Kimi Antonelli took over, and it's business as usual. Except Toto Wolff not paying quite as much for the driver in that particular occasion. We have had 20 minutes of this while-only practice session as George Russell from Mercedes held the second clear of Charles Leclerc. And with Lewis Hamilton, Kimi Antonelli, and Max Verstappen made up the top 5 and everyone on the medium tyre. And he just showed, didn't he, Kimi Antonelli, that you just got to be on the right time at the right time and then see what comes your way and just keep your cool when all around you it's very easy to lose it. I think some of that has to be the way that Mercedes have prepared it. You know, it's pre-season show that you were there, Simon asked question of which team would you like to be a rookie with? And it needed it on Mercedes because they put him in the car, you know, physically in the car, not just in a simulator in a room. They'd had him out there doing 10,000 kilometers of testing, building that relationship, building that rapport with the engineers and the communication and the pit board. They've had Pete Bollington doing the test. They've had other engineers from the test team and Marcus Studio, people like that, you know, giving him a more rounded experience. And what he meant was the sporting director, so the serious thing to me, Sunday morning, they had the drivers in the pit lane talking about when we released you from the pit box, where you're going to be. You know, they really paid a lot of attention to detail to prepare Kimi in a way that, you know, Isaac Hadjar hasn't had that opportunity. He hasn't had 10,000 K of testing, and I think Mercedes done a great job there. It was interesting, yes, showers started independently, and at the point the drivers were brought out for their track walk, and Pete Bollington and Kimi Antonelli were both got out of scooters to go to the end of the paddock and do the track walk. Trying to get through these prides of Chinese people trying to, you know, take the photos of the garage and trying to get order belts and stuff. And they looked like they'd been working together for years, you know, the relationship between them. Kimi was turning around to see where Bono was behind him, making sure he was still with them, you know, and it was really nice to see for race 2 of their relationship. They've clearly worked very hard on that, which can't be easy. Footballer, given that he's certainly the rear wing is flanking away with the bird in flight of Yuki Tsunoda's racing moves. We see that with the last year, the Italian age, the dog flapping about. It's just, you know, see with the Red Bull. I say, oh, there, the spot open. Yeah, there we go. It's flapping about again there. I'm sure we saw that at some point last season. It's different colour. Not really sure if we saw it. It's different. That's what I'm thinking. On the Red Bull, yes, we have seen that a fair few times. Let's just come back. There it is. That's also 18 for its rapidly. It's nutrition to, yeah. It's not good for structural integrity, is it? That sort of load going through the flap is quite difficult, I think. Whether it's deliverable, I don't know. What I was going to say about the relationship between Antonelli and their boy, can't be easy for Bono either. He's had the same driver for many years. So he's having to adjust to a brand new driver. It almost kind of starts again in terms of building the relationship. But it seems good to see, and that relationship that seems to be going pretty well. Gabriel Bortoleto on the track. He has Jose Manuel Lopez as his race engineer, and he's a man that he's worked with for a few seasons in the past. He's gone to Salvin out, and he part of Team Gabby as his way. So he's just easing his tyres into what will be another flying lap. Hold on. 25 minutes gone nearly here in this one practice session, and it's Mercedes Alonso from Ferrari, and then Mercedes through Max Verstappen around 9/10 off the pace, and the team McLaren right there with him. Lando Norris was on a quick lap at Bortoleto at the end, maybe after he gone wide at the hairpin. Here's Gabriel Bortoleto on his latest flying lap. While we watch him, let's bring in Ian Komatsu, the team principal down at Haas. Ian, thanks for joining us. I'm sure you were glad to get out of Australia, which wasn't the best weekend for you. So give us a sense of exactly what was wrong with the car and what you were battling against in Melbourne.
Ja, ik hoop die show very well Friday. I saw we started running. It was a shock to us in a handful. It's just a liquidation of the weakness of the car. We didn't realize it, but that just got completely exposed in a nice vehicle not there.
So in terms of this track, is it a little better for you? There's not much in terms of high-speed cornering.
Yeah, it is a little better. So we watching, we got that down the block to the Caseta station. Det startade physics better medical but need the good performance of this. And the only payment we saw, I think we have decided at the nightmare weekend, really all through the practices and down to 11 qualifying.
How have you reset, or how have you worked with him to reset before the China weekend?
Yeah, honestly, not favorable weekend. That was very uncharacteristic for the final. So basically, the message is to go back to what he was very good at before. And his capability at the Chester, focusing on the right area. I know that he's going to deliver this weekend.
Hi, it's Bernie. Good to have you with us. I was just going to ask, Ollie's one of the only driver at the moment with the sun is second P8. Was that first one recoverable? And is that going to be used later in the year, or do you see that being train issue 3 later on?
At me, I thought, what they're causing. Yes, I thought we really got the loaf, but not sure it's really all it's coming about.
So tell us, just finally, challenges for this weekend, and where you think you can be come the end of the 3 days.
I really don't know, because I get medical. You'll be not expecting that huge issue, so now we understand the weakness of the car just launching through it. So I think we know a lot at the end of the.
And of everything that has been going on, have you had to do anything to your rear wing just to stiffen it up a bit, or not?
Yes. You have had to stiffen it up. Oh my god. We have very deep class though. So you just a PV model, but just minor, so just a few days of more margin. Yeah, we knew that Alpine were one of the teams that have had to change. Are you aware of who else could be affected by this? How about these? Do you want to share it with us? No one else is listening, I promise. Yeah, no, nobody is. No, honestly, I just focus on what we do. Currently, that is as diplomatic an answer as I ever expect from you. Thank you so much. Good to chat to you, mate. We'll chat a little bit later. We tried. We always try, ladies and gentlemen.
So Alpine, Haas,
but the taker keeps going. You make it to this, isn't it? You do believe it's not fortunate. I believe it all. So you've got to go 4 more to do some, Schiller Ponzing. But
yes, Inspector Kravitz, we've narrowed it down for you a little bit. Right, Max Verstappen starting the lap. Do you want to take us through this, career?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see the marks there, as they're saying, down into turn 1, the car buried into the ground as you chuck the car there. Don't stink like this suits like a particularly committed first sector. Really did it tell you I know it was late. Back off now, yeah. And topping downhill into turn 3. Track temperature 36 degrees at this stage, so the tires should be in, but no, this is not the job done it. By the way, Red Bull doing what they did in Australia in the early practice sessions, a back-to-back on the front wings and noses, a running difference. Noses on Liam Lawson and Max Verstappen's car. Well, one question, and Betty, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is obviously there's only one practice session, so actually, this is the only session where you could put the fuel in and do a long run, isn't it? No other. You got the sprint race, which will give you an indication for the Grand Prix, but to prepare for the sprint, this is the only session they've got. So do you foresee some teams doing that, putting a bit of fuel on and doing a 8, 7, 8, 10 lap run?
And that's one of the things that makes a sprint a particularly difficult section for the team, is you generally do your first run at sort of the medium-ish level, 30, 40 kg, as you would a normal P1. Some teams will put fuel in for this middle section of P1, like you say, but you won't go anywhere near as high, I think, as where you go in P2, because it's time. If you lose time at the fuel end, you lose time drawing it back out, and you want your last run at the end of P1
to be a reasonably low fuel to get people's eye in for the braking zones in sprint qualifying 1, because in sprint qualifying 1 you've only got one set of vehicles. If you flat spot those because you get your braking zone wrong because your last run has been high fuel, it's very, very detrimental to your running before. See it shown there and then, so you definitely will work on it through. Some of it fiddling around with the steering wheel when they should think. Well, there's many reasons for that. The steering wheel has a physical setup in terms of where the switches are located. Drivers kind of differ to car. So if that could be one issue, that simply the wrong steering wheel would put in for his car. The other thing is that all of that steering wheel is electronically mapped. So if you think of on your phone, you can get the home button to do a certain thing, or you can have certain defaults. That's how the steering wheel works. So sometimes you'd have a default button that they press. It'll do, brake balance +2, for example, or different switches, and that could be literally just programmed wrong.
That's really fascinating. That graphic that just came up, that George Russell is half a second faster than Lewis Hamilton on the straights alone. Yeah, and we know that people are on a different mode as well. In three Patrick, they can muck about with that. So it'll all shake itself out. Hamilton on a run here on the medium tires still. Yeah, but just half a second. You wouldn't expect it to be quite as much as that. I'll tell you what, let's get Martin Breville's view trackside once again as Lewis Hamilton goes to turn 8. That's exactly where Martin's standing. I am indeed on the inside of turn 8, so we can see them coming through 6 and 7 when something appears on the horizon over there. Oh, big snake. He went to the side over there, he had to collect up a slide. That actually, that's one of the few kind of incidents, if you like, that I've seen since I've been standing at this surface. It's self-spin. And the cars are so good. Actually, pretty much everything is fine to this corner. Minimum speed just there would be about 120 miles an hour. The McLaren's not on it. That there, yours. So what I'm looking for is, as we see Max Verstappen coming through. So what I'm listening for more accurately is this little zone here. He can pick up the throttle. And how hard can they pick up the throttle? Well, I hear bellowing before they have to lift off. It's 9. Then the best car here is the Mercedes. I have no doubt about that. In terms of how early they pick up and how hard and crisp the exhaust note is. I'd also you get a little bit of movement as the back end of the cars can play. You know what I mean? Under heavy torque. Now the Mac is keeping it tight to life. It's a brutal crosswind here, which must be giving it that due challenge rubber. This is the end of 6, 7, and 8 really high speed corners now. Start to overheat the tires again. They've got a tiny little left hand hairpin down at 9. So yeah, really, everything looks so good. I've got to listen rather than look. Back to you. Love it. Thanks, Martin. We're looking at Lando Norris. Instability going into turn 1. I would have gotten attention. Look at the snap for the rear of the car as he chucked it in there. But no, in this lap, so he's aborted that first lap, coming back for another goal again, still on that, the medium. So we not even call this unfortunately. The second forecast, he was on a much better lap. I wish would have put in 6-7 tenths quicker on the timesheets. And then first sector, you'll see a pick up there. Those had to go with. Yeah, but there's sort of a body racket. Stop them with polling out. So they won't show and feels that way, yeah. It's a good point though. These days I say it up. We need to find a way to deal with this win because it's going to be around not just for all the other cars, but also all weekend. So I'm just focusing, I think, a good middle sector there from Lando Norris, so not nearly matching what he did before, despite it being now on a set of the slightly used tyres. We know Russell made a mistake in the middle sector of the lap, so he's got more potential there. And now the final sector, Max Verstappen in the distance ahead of Norris at the moment, so it sort of distant toe down the straight, hard in place, gets the nose around that hairpin and goes wide. So that is the end of that lap. Alright, so let's head down to Ted.
So now McLaren still giving Norris and, well, we haven't seen Piastri yet, but something to think about. That's after a setup change. So they've both done, both Norris, Piastri, Hamilton and Leclerc, been watching the border of the McLaren Ferrari garages. Just did a suspension change between those two runs, the first and the second. And, well, I think I'll be thinking about that quite hard. So Hamilton was a front and rear suspension. I only saw them change the front suspension. Charles Leclerc is just a roll bar, a torsion bar here and there. So, yeah, let's see. But what do we think of the bottom of the order, Crofty? I mean, we're looking forward to sprint qualifying a bit later on. Beside Lawson, probably doing a bit of race running, with heavy fuel. And how much touring do you think they just did? Do they just do their race fuel running in the sprint race? Well, it would be a very good sign because that is one set of tyres from lights out to the checkered flag, but it's not full fuel. It's two-thirds, a third of a tank, half a tank. Yeah, it's a third of the distance. It's third tank up pure, but roughly. But yeah, it is ripped. Supplementin, Bibo 61, BB 5, turn 4, table 1 4, Bibo 61. I just got two different messages just now. Turn 14 be the half dip will you see Lewis struggle on the braking. Yeah, I was just going to say that on the fuel though, that definitely the sprint is your fast number one DNA, but it is generally on one tire, and then the reason obviously you have to use two tires, so you do need to get some alternative rate in the year. And I think what I'll be interested more in the last 23 minutes of this session, who goes on to that soft tire. That's important for sprint qualifying this afternoon, even qualifying on Saturday afternoon, and potentially reading how the race is going to look.
Did it find as Red Bull? I wouldn't do that with Liam Lawson at the moment. I think he needs confidence. I think you need to just get some shoulder runs, do some shoulder balanced runs to just get his confidence up. You know, he's a second away from Max. They had it all down in second last on the timesheet. That's not where you want to be if you're a driver with shoulder confidence, right? So I would just look sort of the long days in the sprint. Whatever happens in the sprint happens. Let's just try and get him a bit of, just a bit more speed. And they put him. I think they loaded him up because his last lap there, 1:39.1. That's indicative of race pace. Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc did a 1:30.7 a few moments ago, which is his best time on the session so far. Moves in 3/10 behind George Russell. Oscar Piastri now pops up into third, so just under half a second out behind Russell in the Mercedes. As we go into this weekend with McLaren and Mercedes level on points after the first race of the weekend. And a long way to go in the championship. Lando Norris saying yesterday, I like this. It's a bit early to talk about the title. I'm not even going to think about that until way beyond halfway. Yes, it was half a second in the final segment, and on the speed trap he was 11k slower than George Russell. So that is the last sector. It is got massive street at the end of it. So does that engine mode turn up for Russell, do you think? It's a combination probably of engine mode turned up. He has a bit of fuel load protected because that gives you your boost start as a corner. And then it could be things like how early they're getting on the DRS or invert or downforce levels. Maybe they're running slightly different downforce levels. Maybe one was expecting the track not to be in such good condition and therefore running it at more downforce to cope with that. We saw it Melbourne that split their cars in FP1, didn't they? Yeah, they had a high one out of medium downforce. So I don't know if Ted, you're wondering if I don't know if your eagle eye has spotted any such plan with the town at the moment in terms of splitting strategy, but something to keep an eye on as the weekend unfolds. Today, you can village when they get to the sessions that matter, so to speak. Sprint volley, I'm sure, and a few others. Although that is Charles Leclerc, who has made his way off the track just out of turn C before turn 3, and he's not the first driver to do that today, but he is the first driver to have a little spin in doing so. Saw Albon do the grabbing up there, didn't he, on the outside, but as you said, he was facing the like way. Yeah, and it is tricky because you're braking and you're loading the car up and the rear is getting lighter and lighter, and eventually you're asking the front end to get into that apex of turn 2. And if you overheat the rear tires,
glory if you get to this point. It's not going to last like that. Yeah, you stretch this, and at some point, it might go snap. That's how it looked here. Look here, he turns it in. It's staying with him at the moment. Now look, you're fully elastic, pulling it, and there's that's the snap, and it's finally gone pop. So getting it right, it does a balance is literally stretching that elasticity, yeah, without it giving up on you on the rear end. It's so more easy. The first 1, 2, 3 corners here. And he's now got a lot of detritus, shall we say, up to his tyres. And on his floor, and I would dare say it's going to be coming into the pits very, very shortly. Just under 20 minutes to go. Here in Shanghai, George Russell still the fastest driver. Top Charles Leclerc, who just had that spin. And now Oscar Piastri up into the top 3 and still no sign of the top outside. Right, let's have a close look at what he did, shall we? Because suffice to say, Australia was not is there any pride for that? We see other cars struggling always % less. Yeah, from that this time. But that's nice, reassurance from the pit wall, and then just to drive home to the point that he really doesn't want to be on these tyres very much longer. From Kylian Antonelli, back on board with Ollie Ben. And what does he do this weekend to get Australia out of his mind? If boss, I know she told me this morning, I said to Ollie, just need to do the laps. We give you a run plan. I want you to do every single lap, and that is what he needs. Just don't tell it. He's not your head and speed. He just needs to build himself back up. I mean, okay, the Shandon FP1, yeah, it is what it is. The car was took you to drive at a high speed. It snapped him off at the apex of 10. On the very first lap of FP3, had he missed all of Friday, you know, that was something that the team were really not impressed with, and that's the sort of stuff he can't get away with in F1. You know, you've just got to be doing the plan, get the information, especially the team who are starting behind where they expect it to be. Yeah, I think when you're trying to improve the car, every lap fights, every bit of data fights to watch it. The only thing that will stand all the other bit compared to some of the others, maybe from Australia, is he finished the race. He done all the laps in the race. Last year was the Friday and Saturday that were more difficult to actually get him, and then gone into the race, got all the laps on the board, kept it nice at Kane's ride. So, you know, there's a little bit there enough. His last session of the car wasn't bad.
So you just look at the race times then. Russell at 37.8, Antonelli 38.5. We heard him saying that the tyre was dead. Verstappen, now he's on a slow lap, but that, just again, Lawson, 38.2, so a little bit off what we've seen from George Russell by half second. And Antonelli's already done 19 laps on those tyres, so they've not done a great deal of laps on region tyres prestige. It's good, isn't it? It's a sprint, and the sprint is 90 laps. George Russell, I think, was the only one they do it here. Oh, the list. That's no benevolent. Yes, I said it used to be a gravel trap, as I'm sure he remembers all too well. And accelerating into the pit lane. I'm glad there isn't a grounded trap there. Even if you don't want to see cars tracking as a gravel trying to get into the pit. As I said, George Russell, it was the only one on a soft tyre to be at the sprint last year. It was, yeah, he was the only one on the soft tyre last year. It was standout amongst all the others around the medium tyre for the full sprint. And, you know, he actually managed it pretty well. Degradation wasn't too bad before the end. He used it in the initial laps to gain some position because he qualified a little bit out of position for that car. It's a soft tyre work for him. Now, as the track improves, the tyres will get better. That blistering will get better as the track improves through the weekend, and they won't be pressured maybe as hard as they did in the earlier laps here. Started 11th, finished 8th, so he played at points of his sprint last year. And his choice land, and Norris was on pave and got one of his less better stuff, shall we say. And Max Verstappen went on to win the dominating domestic weekend. It's 2 months.
at home the point that he doesn't want to be on those tyres anymore, but he is still out there on the track. That message was from a couple of minutes ago. And then just after that, Lewis Hamilton coming into the pits. I don't know if he thinks about 2007 every time he likes a pit stop here, but thinking that Dick Morton keeps going over the runoff area there. I was cycling the track yesterday, and I thought it was 2010. It is, honestly, I remember when I raced here in 2010 or the WEG race. I thought of Lewis in the gravel every time I came in the pit lane. It's one of those massive moments in F1 history. Then the sigh of wrong, all the pit wall right there, some of the pit wall arms, and he would have been a rookie world champion. He was that day if they pitted him 2 laps earlier. It blighted Lake Kitty. I tell you what, I heard an amazing stat from Dan Prosser, who is on a podcast. If you look, Lewis Hamilton, if you take 4 results which were outside his control to be different, okay, so Malaysia 2016, yep, Abu Dhabi 2021, yeah, you take the 2007 sensor issue in Brazil, yeah, which dropped him a few places, and you take the puncture in Spain 2010, right, he would have been an 11-time world champion. If there is a... It's a very good one, right? Isn't it? Give me Antonelli coming into the pits. Reach is still at right aboard. Yeah, I'd never thought about that at all. That's very good. Right, so thank you, Dan. You're going to something to think about today. All I do is come to a standstill. I have an issue. No car steering. While on the switch left. Look at here, it's such a... clear and concise and nothing to do with Jack doing. As to why the car has stopped, the instructions are get out, mate. We're going to have to get that back. And we have a red flag. Oh, that's bad for everybody. Yeah. Clark will continue to take down. And it does that because there is support series and there's a schedule. They can't afford the time to stop the quad and impact on other race series. There's a gap between sessions. Yeah, it had to have the defined gap between the end of factors and the South Spring quali. So initially bad for Jack Dewars, who's not going to get soft tire run in, and bad for everyone else because they can all be on the track at the same time, tiptoeing it over each other if they want to get a performance run in before sprints qualifying. Power steering, you stupid, he comments. Well, immediately my mind goes to hydraulics when you hear that they've lost power steering, and that tends to be what controls things like the gear shifts, as well as that, which tends to be then you get a shut off from the engine side. So all of that sort of hints at that. He did do this sort of T-thudded jump off the chassis. I don't know if that's just him because he's not heard anything from the others. When you see that jump, that tends to indicate that maybe he's been warned of a potential electronic issue and they just jump clear of the car. There's no chance of any danger to him, but sometimes they do that as well when they've lost telemetry. So when they've lost data coming from the car, just to be safe, they're warned that it's good practice as well. Just warn the drivers, jump clear of the car, and then now it just means that we can't see the data termination. We're not 100% sure that it's safe. That's why they've done it that way. And I don't think that little gap that Jack has rolled through, if you get a car through. So we've got a red flag, because I'm going to see whether they're going to get the goal. Where to go back? And if they're with the buyer they're meeting? Possibly, I'm quite sure they can do that. Let's listen. So yeah, one question didn't that. But they just coast to a standstill. Yeah, and that's the hydraulics to me, but I will wait to be corrected by someone much more knowledgeable than well told which. Ted Kremen, it's not a man for that. Ted, where is it? I am down Mercedes and Red Bull, and Liam Lawson, by the way, is for first time running exactly the same nosy front wing configuration as Max Verstappen. So nice to see that. There is parity on more experiments on the front of the Red Bulls. The fuel hoses are attached to the Kiwis car, so let's see if they're taking the fuel out, ready to do a bit of qualifying preparation. While next up at Mercedes, on those sort of longer runs, it really was just a case of the tyres going away. You heard Antonelli saying the front left had gone. He was really struggling with understeer and just getting slower and slower. And George Russell, actually, the same thing, but the rears as well, with the rear tyres overheating, with the especially now when they were spinning up the rear tyres, which of course they won't be doing under race conditions. So I'm just wondering, Bernie, with these blistered tyres, is there any way, and the Aston Martin engine there was right. I am seeing, actually sorry, it was Peter Pollington was right. I'm seeing a bit of blistering up and down the pit lane. Is it something you can drive through, or just to sort of understand that it create means then you're just going to be terribly slow and you need to get off those tyres? I think it's very difficult, Tad. I think with blistering, you're still like green and where you can clear that old tyre. I think questions tends to be a little bit deeper into the tyre, so it is more difficult, I think, to clear blistering. And blistering tends to be one of those things because of the temperature within the tyre. We're running quite high front pressures here, I believe. But I don't think with a National, it's still quite high for this track. There was high demands of the front of this tyre as well. And all of that is probably a little bit of overheating internally, and that's what's causing the blistering.
Right, session's going to resume in a minute's time. I'm looking at the commentary box window. I can see Jack Doohan taking his crash helmet off and walking down the pit lane. I can see quite clearly on the run to turn 11 that's his car has been deposited on the other side of the barriers. So we're all set to go in a minute's time. Yep, soft tyres bolted onto the McLaren there. Oscar Piastri coming on, Carlos Sainz as well. I think Liam Lawson's not been here before, after you said, right? Because as a rookie, I think you said, was it only Doohan that's been here? So Lawson's not driven at this track. And it's the kind of thing where I feel like a big team like Red Bull should have had him here, should have had him testing here in an old car. And it is not a 2-year-old car. We saw Mercedes without a 5-year-old car, which they can do under the regulations. Just get him here during the day, and then, knowing it's a sprint weekend, knowing you only have one session. I think it was racing last year, so did that stop the doing a lot more? They could have either brought in the and done the day. I mean, I think this is the thing with the big teams. They're declaring profits of, millions. Should use so they had to do some driver development. With George Russell leaving a gap there for the South, let's see where she come into, or was Gabriel Bortoleto say, thank you, I'll see a gap, I'll go for it. Excellent. Do that. Yes, meanwhile, everyone in South this is like confined. Well, you all want to get a run in. And they should all get a run in. Yep. But it's going to be a lot of cars. We'll try to fight for the same piece of tarmac. And one of the got hit earlier, 3.38 mile circuits. How big a gap do you prefer to leave to the counter front? You like quite a big gap here, particularly guess from turn 1 to turn 13. And if you could get a nice, perfectly positioned toad at either of the streets, that would be beautiful. But I think that's very, very hard to engineer. The difficulty we have here is this is our one run on soft before they go into SQ3 this afternoon. And it's likely, not impossible, in SQ3 they're not sitting in the penalty end for as long as they are now. And that means that your prep is different. The outlap is different to what it will be in SQ3 this afternoon. So you have to take all that into consideration. Back temp is at 38 degrees, and in sometimes I think by the time we get to qualify, it could be in the low 40s, couldn't it? At this rate. But there's still going to be in the middle of the afternoon, local time.
Yeah, it's expected to keep rising the air throughout the day. The track temperature, we're expecting very little change in the flight cover. Yesterday when we were here at track, it did seem a lot warmer towards that afternoon, so yeah, I think we'll keep going. I'm just going to say as well, the all-time best lap here, 2018, Sebastian Vettel, 1:31.094. George Russell has the fastest time so far with 1:32.3. We haven't put the soft tyres on yet. The track is still rubbery in. You meant 30 seconds faster than last year. Durex already. So I wonder if we're going to get a lap record at some stage in one of the qualifying sessions. Guaranteed, I think we are. Absolutely. Here we go. We'll rush in. So the benchmark at 32.3 on the median. Let's have a look as he sets off down to 200 by the hour as you turn in. Do that first corner. Is the rear going to stick with him? Look at that. Martin was saying trackside. The Mercedes look good. Yeah, even a correction there as he tried to get into the apex of 2. So we'll see if that's cost him. Lap time comes to 3-4 now. The little rise at the kink of fight and break downhill into 6. Lewis nicely to the apex head of the city, looking very hooked up. And on that, Max Verstappen getting nicely out of the way as Russell chucks it into the left hand of 7. The look at the car banging the ground, leading those sparks then through 8. And now look at Leclerc's the sector. 2 tenths up, but we know Russell had that moment at turn 2. You get the second intermediate time in a moment here, and he's a tenth up. So that's a bit more representative. You're 2 tenths up in the first sector. Alex Albon has put the 27.8 into the middle sector, which is the best we've had so far. George Russell coming to the end of that sector was led, and Norris puts in a 24.2. Wow, for sector 1. Russell was a 10 slower than Albon in that middle sector. 10th slower as well was Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. Russell down to the hairpin now. We're keeping an eye on Antonelli and Leclerc of the stopwatches. There's Hamilton, I should say. Now puts in the fastest middle sector. Russell crosses the line, seeing finished outside of his best time so far at 1:32.3 on the medium tire. Will still stay. Hamilton hanging on out of the hairpin. Oh, it's the hairpin. And his teammate Charles Leclerc hanging on out of the hairpin at the same time as Leclerc crosses the line, goes quickest with 1:32.1, but 33 tenths between himself and George Russell. Here comes Kimi Antonelli, goes 5th fastest. Did he push a bit too on Lee's in terms of tyre grip at the final sector? Hamilton crosses the line, goes 2nd fastest, separated by only 9/100ths of a second to his teammate Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris makes to cross the line. He's now put his McLaren in between the 2 Ferraris, and Oscar Piastri is next to cross the line, and he goes 5th fastest behind George Russell, who couldn't improve on the soft tire. Ollie Behrman pops up to get 8th fastest. That's great for him. That is exactly what he needs to read the list off. Here's Max Verstappen. So Verstappen's first sector coffee 24.5, 3 tenths. Then Lando Norris this time, so let's see what the middle sector does for him. Ocon goes 11th fastest, confirming that the pace of the Haas on the soft compound tyre actually might be pretty decent. Isaac Hadjar goes 13th fastest and ahead of his teammate Yuki Tsunoda, who's currently on a flying lap. Hulkenberg goes up to 16th as Verstappen stops the lolly drag down towards the hairpin out of turn 13. It must seem like an age of the DRS of wide over before slamming on the brakes and decelerated from 205 or so miles an hour and down to that 47, 48 mile an hour hairpin. Now into the pits goes Verstappen. He has aborted that lap, and it wasn't looking like he was going to trouble the top 4, maybe the top 5 in terms of pace. Tsunoda goes 9th fastest ahead of Ollie Behrman. Fernando Alonso is up there, 7th fastest for Aston Martin. Alex Albon is up there, 6th fastest for Williams. And Lance Stroll gets 11th fastest to complete his flying lap, so everyone bar Jack do it seems to have got a soft tyre run in. But Verstappen didn't improve, and Russell didn't improve. Yeah, Verstappen missed the best time in the mid sector. His first sector was a bit down on Norris, but not too far away from what we saw from Hamilton. So I think he would have dragged himself into the top 5, but I wouldn't have seen him getting to the thing. I wonder if Mercedes did the engines out for that medium run, because on the speed traps, on the medium tires, Russell was 340k, Antonelli 338. Right, on the softs they were down at 333 and 332. So yeah, I wonder if that sort of explains why Russell's medium time was 2 tenths quicker than they thought. It's looking more likely as this session has evolved, so that's exactly what they did. Yeah, and Lando, it had a good first sector, but did he hit the tires too hard in sector 1 and he was out? Let's have a look here. The bang up cheat assist is turn 8. Just focus on this. I think he's made a mistake on the previous lap, isn't he? So there you go. He knows he's made a mistake, doesn't want to say it necessarily on the team radio. Oh, went super wide on this snap at turn 2 as well. Had a rear snap and went wide there. Did all something to that rear snap, but he's still in touch though. Yeah, decent first sector is 24.5, so it's a bit slower than what he did before. 3 tenths slower than what he did before, but let's see if he can. There's turn 8 now. Let's have a look. That's better. Nice too. But brings the car back. Get it to 9. Don't go wide on the cut up. Yep. Little micro correction on the way out. So let's look at the midi sector copy. So as he is, but you know, that is much better. So we know there's 3 more tenths from his previous lap in sector 1. Let's see what this last sector does. And Leclerc's also improving on the second time lap here. Down the back straight goes Lando Norris on this second flying run. The checker flag is now out. The first driver to take it. It was Liam Lawson, who didn't necessarily put in the most convincing soft tyre lap of his F1 career so far. Norris struggling with the grip, as you would expect, to the end of a second lap. All these soft compound tyres, but he's got enough grip to floor it around the final corner and to go fastest overall. 6 tenths between itself and Charles Leclerc. If Leclerc reduce that deficit, he can, only by about 1/10.5. Lando Norris, as Oscar Piastri goes wide at the final corner and crosses the line. Third fastest, but thus with that lap, it was it that lap, not 32 Yeah, but everything for Piastri was the last corner, the last sector, sorry. Yeah, they lost 7 tenths to Norris just in the last sector. So yeah, I think Piastri, if he gets a tidy lap, he'll be there. But Lando Norris, that is a benchmark and a half, isn't it? Well, he's we made the slight error in turn 8. He fixed that and fixed a few other things as well as Hulkenberg goes 6th fastest. Now, I also want to caveat that every single run is laying down more rubber onto a newly resurfaced track, and the track is getting faster and faster as a result. So in qualifying, in sprint qualifying, he can't be the last over the line and afraid that they're onto the yellow flags. Yeah, that's still think. You think that last year this was a good track for South. There wasn't it? Well, if they were there, they're about borderline. Those cars into the top 10 in sprint qualifying. Yeah. Now, I think Joey Riley finished 9th. They didn't have the sprint, especially the Piastri moment. We saw, as I was saying, 7 tenths down in the final sector. Yeah, he's way off the track, wasn't he? Okay, so he knows if he goes the lap out, he's there. He matched Lando. He was within a 10th of Lando in the first 2 sectors. In fact, he's actually a bit quicker in sector 1. So Piastri's there. This is the snap we saw from Norris at turn 2. They put him way out wide. There's 3 tenths for him there. McLaren are a touch above everybody else. We think the Mercedes had their engines turned up for George Russell on the medium tyre when he put in that. Well, so the tyre was a benchmark run. The McLaren have returned to the track to confirm what George Russell was saying yesterday, which is they are not just the car to beat, but the car they're going to absolutely wipe the floor with everyone else this season. See how that turns out. What we don't know is Max Verstappen's true on that pace, because he had aborted his lap and came into the pits. And he quite fancies a practice start from pole position, I'm sure, where of course he was for the Grand Prix last year. He had to be in Norton Park next to it, and Norden, what would he give to have his front row lockout? I mean, Lawson 18th, 33.6, 7 tenths behind Yuki Tsunoda. What I'd like to know, well, we often talk about how tricky the Red Bull is to drive, right? And there's always thinking, though, should they have put Tsunoda in the car? Yeah. What would have happened if you swapped Tsunoda and Lawson now? Because, it's a Red Bull tricky to drive, man. And if Lawson was in the racing bills, would he be performing that well? And do Red Bull leader wide in the envelope? I think naturally he's talking to Christian after the session. Maybe I think he can offer them insight, but it just was just to us. Because he's the 4th driver. You see Gasly doing way since he left. He won a race after he got Fredia next to an Alpha Tauri. Alan's album, lovely Zappy Sluggish. Yeah, doing a great job. P7. We know that Checo was, fairly capable before you enter Red Bull, and then even 2021 he was thereabouts. I mean, Landon talks about McLaren not necessarily suiting his driving style. I don't know if the Red Bull doesn't necessarily suit the driving style of any of the 6 or the 5 teammates that Max Verstappen has had. Does it Red Bull? Does it only suit the driving style of you want out of 19 drivers on the grid? And in that case, so Zach Brown doing an interview last week saying he believes Max is off at the end of the year. Yeah, if he is off, what did it do? Well, it did. Doesn't seem to be the most productive thing, although Red Bull have been very productive with it. A lot of rather pet. And then Zeppelin Piastri medal. Possibly is, yeah, Bolton. I mean, he's been productive from Red Bull over the last few years, but of course they didn't win the Constructors' Championship in 2024. And if Max does go, then they've got some thinking to do about 2026. Lewis Hamilton on his own, on the creative development with his practice start. It's like a remake of Humvee that size. He will, I'm sure, be pretty pleased with the way that session turned out. And at one stage, he was within a tenth of a second of his teammate, albeit Leclerc went faster on the second run. But he's 2/10 down on Leclerc after one practice session. Still getting used to that Ferrari, but I think it needs a big-ish weekend to just to say, right, okay, Australia was Australia, park that, and the season starts here. Yeah, you saw this so far, do enough then, so we saw it in Melbourne, isn't it? That was a gap between them, and he won to fills that down. That without a doubt. So Jack too calls it a red flag, and he was the only one that didn't get the soft tyre run in. Others did get that soft tyre run in, and some improved. Most improved, others did not. That is it for practice. When we come back, it'll be sprint qualifying. Cars will go into Parc Fermé, and then we'll have the sprint tomorrow. They'll come back out of the Parc Fermé. We'll have qualifying for the Grand Prix, and the Grand Prix on the Sunday. That's how it works out in sprint weekend. 6 in the season here in Miami, Spa and Austin, Brazil, and Qatar too. 6 sprints and 24 Grand Prix. Just have a look here at Mel Stroll getting out of his car. But usual to see a driver getting out while the car's went into pit lane, or is it going to be weighed? Is that the weigh bridge? Yeah, stopped before the weigh bridge. So they not normally stay in for the weigh bridge, and then they get pushed. Well, you have to wait with the driver in it. Yeah. Did you tell me there again? It's just Lewis Hamilton. Oh no, it's just live. It's the pitch, but it's live. Just with the clean outside. No window. If you fit it, there you go. Have a look at it. And yeah, so a driver would normally stay in the car, and then it would get pushed. Yeah, we could say the car get weighed, and then it's there's a bit of a queue down there, to be fair. Yeah, I wonder if that's what is going on. So maybe they just add to the weight. I see they can get weighed separately. Yeah, and it's not an issue. Yeah, you just add it together. There's only 3 factors, so it's fine. Yeah, there is a queue. So that's it then for practice. What glorious Friday afternoon here in Shanghai, where the air temperature is touching 24 degrees. It's like spring is coming. It might even be the first day of spring. I don't know. Lando Norris was the fastest. He has sprung back into action after springing into life at the start of this season by winning and taking pole in Australia. And he was nearly half a second clear of Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris, by the way, the only driver in the last 21 Grand Prix to lead an FP1 session and then go on to win the Grand Prix. Maybe that's an omen for this weekend as well.